When most ERP vendors and consultants speak about the industry right now, you'll hear a lot of buzzwords around agile, predictive analytics, machine learning, intelligent enterprise, things like that. But when you ask me to summarize my predictions for the ERP software industry in 2020 and beyond, two words come to mind, and that is mass hysteria. My name is Eric Kimberling, CEO of Third Stage Consulting Group. We provide technology agnostic consulting to our global client base to help them with their digital transformations. And today I want to talk about the top 10 predictions for 2020. Before I do that, just to lighten the mood a little bit, as I was trying to think about my predictions for the coming year, which I do every year and have for the last 13 or so years, I was trying to think of what one word comes to mind. And as I was doing that, I happened to be listening to some 80s rock music and came across Hysteria by Def Leppard, which is one of my favorite albums from the 80s. And if you're a fan, you probably know that music as well. And Hysteria really describes where I see the industry in 2020. And I don't say that in a negative way. I don't mean that to be in a negative way, but it's something that we need to be aware of, and we need to watch out for some of these pitfalls in the industry. Now, as I'm going through this top 10 list, I'd really appreciate if you share any comments you have below. I'd love to hear what you think, what you agree with, what you disagree with, what you might add to the list. And stay tuned for the end of the video, because I'm also going to share the 3 tips that I would give to anyone that's about to embark on a digital transformation journey for 2020 and beyond. So the first prediction for 2020, which probably isn't a huge surprise to many of you, is that this will be the year that we finally see the tipping point of cloud adoption. Most of the ERP vendors, if not all of them, are really doubling down on the cloud platform, and in some cases forcing customers to switch to the cloud. So you have customers such as SAP, for example, who have a 2025 mandate to force their customers to S4HANA. Although they do still provide on-premise and hybrid models, for the most part they are pushing as many clients as they can to the cloud, as are their system integrators. So for that reason, and the fact that cloud has reached economies of scale, there's some cost efficiencies and value that organizations are seeing with the cloud movement, combined with the fact that a lot of organizations just don't want to deal with having to build an IT infrastructure in today's day and age, is leading to this tipping point of cloud adoption. Now, the one thing I will say is I believe that there's more cloud being pushed on the industry than is necessarily best for customers. So it's really important that you have a clear vision for what it is you want to accomplish with your digital transformation to determine whether or not cloud is right for you. And if it's not, then we need to figure out what are some alternatives for that. So that is a very strong movement in the industry right now, is this whole tipping point of cloud adoption. Now, given the fact that companies are doubling down on their cloud platforms at the moment, that leads me to prediction number 2, which is some of the technical deficiencies of the software platforms that are being released by the software vendors will be exposed. Now, in years past, if you've followed me for a while, read my stuff, I've always said that technology is typically not the problem when there's digital transformation failure. I think what we're seeing in today's day and age is an exception, because there's so many immature products that are being put out there in the rush to the cloud, and this gold mine that the vendors are tapping into in terms of building that recurring revenue stream via the cloud. So companies are rushing to get their software out on the cloud, and in many cases well before the products are ready. So those technical deficiencies are starting to be exposed by companies that are implementing S4HANA, D365, Oracle Cloud, and insert vendor or product name here. And those deficiencies will continue to be exposed, but at a bigger scale in the next year or so, as more companies begin to move down the path to cloud. Now, the number 3 prediction is related to the first 2, which is, along with this adoption or this movement to the cloud, is more of a recognition that these software solutions are not only mature, but they can't be everything to everyone, and they can't be everything to everything we need internally as an organization, especially while these software vendors are still developing their product largely and trying to figure out what the products are going to look like in the future. So that's going to lead us to prediction number 3, which is a customization crisis. Now you're going to see all these organizations in the coming year or so that are stuck. They've got a problem, and they're going to have to choose a lesser of 2 evils. Do we accept this software the way it is with all of its warts and deficiencies and gaps in functionality? Or do we go down the path of customizing, God forbid? And so many CIOs and executives are rightfully afraid of customizing. So there's really no good answer there. There's no perfect answer, certainly. So we've got to figure out what the right path is for us and what the right approach is. Now, prediction 4 somewhat mitigates that customization crisis with prediction number 3, which is best of breed ERP solutions will become more and more and increasingly important or palatable to organizations. And what I mean by that is, instead of trying to pick one ERP solution that does everything for your entire organization, you're going to see more organizations that say, we're going to take this core ERP system to handle, say, finance, accounting, inventory management, but when we get to outlying areas or more complex areas like product lifecycle management or project management, human capital management, manufacturing, we're going to have more of a best of breed approach, or we're going to find the best solution that fits each of those functional areas and tie it back to that ERP core. Now, in the past, that's been frowned upon because that creates multiple systems and an architecture and integration situation that's hard to manage. But organizations, given those first 3 predictions, are likely not going to have a lot of other options, or this might be the most palatable option for a lot of organizations that are kind of stuck. So that's the number 4 prediction, which is that best of breed model is going to become increasingly attractive to organizations as a result of the state of the industry right now. Now, along with this rush to move to new platforms and new ERP platforms for a lot of organizations, again, being led by SAP, who's given customers until 2025 to get off their current systems and move to S/4HANA, I suspect that other vendors will follow suit. They're already putting a lot of pressure on customers to move to their flagship newer products, regardless of level of fit. But that's where salespeople are getting the most commission. That's where the vendors are making the most money. So you're seeing this push toward moving to the new platform now, and what that's doing is creating a spike in demand for resources that understand and can implement those products. So it's creating a skills crisis, and that's prediction number 5. There's a skills crisis within each of the ecosystems, SAP, Oracle, Microsoft. We're seeing it across the board, even with some of the smaller tier 2 vendors, where the resources either aren't available because they're all being snapped up by other implementations that are happening with that same urgency to move to the cloud or move to a new platform now, or the resources aren't well versed in these new systems. The new systems are new. They don't have multiple project life cycles like they may have had with the legacy products in the past. So you've got a lot of newbies or a lot of people that are fairly green in these new solutions, and that's adding to the stress of the skills crisis at prediction number 5. So prediction number 6 is another mitigation tactic that I think is a reaction to the first 5 predictions, which is more of an emphasis on organizational change management. And actually, I think this is a very positive thing, because in the past, companies have historically neglected organizational change management. They've left it as an afterthought. They've baked it into, kind of a list of 20 or 50 other roles and responsibilities that the project team has. But if organizations are going to be successful and they're going to make these big leaps from their current on-premise system to these new cloud solutions that offer all these really advanced technologies, bigger jumps than what we've seen in past years, organizational change management has to be a critical part of those implementations. And so out of necessity and just to survive the digital transformations that these companies are going through, you're going to see a big spike and a big focus on organizational change management, or at least you should. And if we don't see a big increase in organizational change management, we're going to see an increase in failures, which we'll get to that here in a second. Which leads me to the number 7 prediction, which is there will be an increase in the number of failures in the ERP space. Now, the ERP and digital transformation space has never had a particularly good track record for success, and there's been more failures than there should be, and the failures that do happen can largely, or could have largely been avoided. But what we're going to see now is all these predictions that I just described all coming together to create this perfect storm of lack of resources. The technology is not ready for prime time. We're now trying to patch together multiple systems to support this. We haven't invested enough in organizational change management. Those things come together to increase the failure rate. And the good news is, if you're watching this video and you're taking your digital transformation seriously, you will do something to avoid becoming one of those failures. And there's plenty you can do, which I'll share with you at the end of this video, to avoid becoming a statistic in those failures. But I do think that you will see an uptick in the number of failures in 2020 and beyond as a result of all the things we've talked about so far. Now, the number 9 prediction, and I think this is actually going to become more and more important as we get into 2021, 2022, is that customers are going to start to revolt. We're getting calls every day from a lot of SAP in particular customers, but even Oracle and some Microsoft customers that are irritated. They're irate that they have these products that are working just fine, or they have a bigger fish to fry as an organization than worry about an ERP implementation. But for whatever reason, they're being forced or pressured to move to a new product. So I personally think that's going to backfire. I think what we're just based on limited data that we're seeing so far from SAP customers, for example, they're opening up their eyes to other options. If they're going to have to re-implement S4HANA after being on ECC or R3 for 10 or 20 years, it's going to be a complete re-implementation. Why not look at Oracle, Microsoft, and all the other digital transformation products out there in the marketplace? So I think you're going to see some backlash from customers with the software vendors, and the material, whether or not that's a material impact, is left to be seen. And as a result, more and more customers are going to be looking for backup outside of those traditional ERP ecosystems. So in other words, rather than just calling SAP or an SAP system integrator to figure out how they move to S4HANA, they're going to be looking for outside third-party advice that isn't affiliated with those software vendors. And we're already seeing that being unaffiliated ourselves. And then finally, that leads us to the number 10 prediction in the industry, which is, I think we're going to see a number of these allegedly independent consulting firms that aren't really, but claim that they're independent. I think there's going to be a backlash against those firms as well, and they'll be exposed and they'll be busted. There's too many customers that are too smart to hire an independent consulting firm that has backroom deals and under-the-table deals through sister companies or other arrangements to get commission on recommending certain products. Customers are too smart for that. And I think you're going to see that exposure of some pretty well-known independent consulting firms. So that's the number 10 prediction, and those are the 10 biggest predictions that I have in mind. But again, I'd love to hear your comments below. So please share with me what you think. I'd love to hear what questions you have, what comments, things you agree or disagree with, or additional things you'd like to add. In the meantime, though, what do we do about this? I mean, it may sound like a doomsday scenario. Obviously, mass hysteria creates a certain fear. But at the end of the day, this is our project. I mean, it's our company, regardless of what's happening out here in the ERP world, shouldn't affect our business. So what can we do to filter all the garbage that's happening out here in the ERP industry to make some sense of it, to make it work for our organization? And if I had to summarize in three things, there's three things that I would suggest to you as an organization. First of all is, don't get backed into a corner. Don't let a software vendor dictate to you when you're going to implement a new product, how soon you need to upgrade. If they cut off support for that product, fine, let them cut off support. Maybe they're not sinking R&D dollars into it, but do it on your time frame. Do what makes sense for you, and if for whatever reason that product doesn't make sense for you, look at other products out there. If it's time for you to upgrade your system, but you don't want to be forced into a cloud solution, or you're not happy with your incumbent vendor's flagship product that they're rolling out now, go look at other options. There's a ton of them out there, and it's a very competitive market right now. You have a lot of best-of-breed options, like I mentioned before, companies like Salesforce and ServiceNow, Workday, a lot of companies that are providing these best-of-breed solutions that can provide great functional performance to kind of plug the gaps of some of these core ERP systems. And there's other great ERP systems out there too, beyond what you're using now. So that's number one, is to don't be backed into a corner. Number two is to have a clear digital transformation strategy as you head into 2020 and beyond. Understand what it is you want to do and look for those quick wins and go for that agile approach, but do it in the context of an overarching strategy. Make sure you understand what it is you want to accomplish, when you want to accomplish, how it aligns with your overall strategy and objectives. That's the most important thing. If you do that, then that will filter out all the garbage and the noise in the industry to help you figure out what makes the most sense for you. And then finally, and thirdly, ask for help. If you don't know how to move forward, email me. I've included my email, contact information below. Email me. I'd be happy to set up a half-hour video conference to bounce around ideas informally and just allow you to pick my brain and bounce around some ideas. So I hope you found this very useful. I'd love to hear your feedback, comments below. Please like or dislike this video, depending on whether you liked it or disliked it. And I also encourage you to please subscribe to my channel. And also, one last thing, I've also included a link to our 2019 ERP and Digital Transformation Report. Contains other best practices for implementation and things to consider as you embark on your digital transformation in 2020 and beyond. Hope you have a great day, and thank you very much again for your time.